It's got to get to Fulton County, Georgia. And here we go. A Georgia Court of Appeals has disqualified the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, from that election interference case. It's coming down right now. The case against Trump and more than a dozen others already largely stalled, as you know. The new ruling means that it will be up to the prosecuting attorney's council in the state of Georgia to find another prosecutor to decide on the case, to take it over and make a decision as to whether or not they continue with a prosecution of the incoming president.
And former Deputy Assistant Attorney General John Yoo is here. John, does this mean that this is yet another one of the cases against Trump that could go away before he's president?
It's another example, Dana, of this lawfare campaign that was waged by Democrats, boomeranging back on them and falling all around their ears. Anyone who watched this trial, remember, this is the DA who claimed that the entire Trump reelection campaign was something like an organized crime racket that was intending to deprive everyone of our civil rights to vote. But remember, we saw the dramatic testimony over the summer of how DA Fani Willis had hired her boyfriend, essentially, to be the special counsel, overpaid him, and then had him investigate.
All right, so we know by now the breaking news on DA Fani Willis. I couldn't help myself. I had to go live as soon as possible to celebrate this fantastic news. We knew this was going to happen. This case has been dead. Now we just had probably the equivalent of the actual funeral. Nobody is going to want to pick up this case and move forward with this case. This case was nothing but lawfare. It was politically targeted to take out Donald Trump and to keep him from becoming the president again. And of course, this has failed spectacularly. Fortunately, thank God it has. And Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, in my opinion, they are soon to be on the receiving end of lawfare themselves that they so rightly deserve, in my humble opinion. So any rate, welcome. Appreciate everybody being here. We are going to get right into it. I'll make sure everybody can hear me fine. If you'd like to join the program today, this is a open mic. If you'd like to call in, if you just like to type, you feel free to do so by putting in the comments below. I think everybody can hear me. Hello to everyone on the X platform. I'm on X, of course, at Reach JR Dukes. All the other platforms are simply at JR Dukes. So hello to everybody on YouTube and our friends on the Twitch platform. All righty. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I am JR Dukes. This is the home of the free-minded patriots. My mission here is to help you understand the world we live in by putting an end to the terrible disease of indoctrination that we seem to all be suffering from. I am here to cut through the noise and help you live your best life possible by understanding the events that shape all of our lives. And of course, in relation to sweet Fani Willis, what a corrupt woman, a corrupt Fulton County, Georgia. I'm very familiar with that area of the world. As we've talked about numerous times on this program, that county has been corrupt for a very long time. It's been corrupt my entire life, and I know it's been corrupt way before me, as we've talked about. MLK Jr. would have never been MLK Jr. had it not been for JFK, because he had Martin Luther King freed, because Fulton County decided to put him in jail and kind of lose the room. And that is documented in the Atlanta Constitutional Journal back in 2020, where Fulton County for the first time actually issued an apology to the King family that was rightly deserved. So the tradition there in Fulton County of this mass, continuous, constant corruption seems to never stop. It has no bounds. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade would have better been served by simply continuing the nonsense that they were engaging in for quite some time in Fulton County, and just kind of keeping a low profile, not literally go onto the world stage where everybody would have the ability to investigate them and see them for what they are. I mean, it is staggering, very staggering, that they've been able to get away with this for as long as they got away with this. So my hat off to the Georgia Court of Appeals. It is a 3 member Court of Appeals. There's actually 15 judges on the Court of Appeals, but they break it up in the state of Georgia into 5 separate circuits. So simple math, there's 3 per circuit. And in this particular case, it was actually a split decision. It was 2-1, but the decision went the correct way. Now, technically, Fani Willis and Company can and probably will appeal to the actual state Supreme Court, but it's not going to go anywhere. Generally, a case like this, I just don't see it happening where they would overturn it at the state Supreme Court level. And there, I believe there's 15 judges that sat on that particular court. So whatever the number is, the whole court would hear it at that particular time. And very, very unlikely that it's going to take any type of substantial detour than what we have already been familiar with. And of course, I'm elated. I'm sure Donald Trump is elated. This is, as you could probably predict, in my estimation, a huge victory for justice, the law of order, and freedom-loving patriots out there. All of us. This has been nothing but a continuation of the witch hunt against now President Donald Trump. Elected should have never been brought. And it's very unfortunate that there was at least one guilty plea with, I forgot her name off the top of my head, but one of Donald Trump's former attorneys. We're going to take a look at her video here in a second, and we'll talk about it when we get to her video. But when you have enough resources brought to bear and you really start hammering down on a person that, and let's be honest about it, the government versus any of us, the government has literally unlimited resources. They can bring the full faith and credit of the state, or on a federal level, the feds, down on an individual. And you are really, as Donald Trump would say, you're up against a tough system. And I think that's a very accurate way to describe the United States court system in general. That doesn't mean it's not a good court system. It's probably the best court system that man has ever thought of, but that does not mean it's perfect. It is far from perfect. So if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and put a hello in the comments. Introduce yourself. Let us know where you are from. I'd like to see where everybody is from. Also, if you would be interested in supporting the channel, feel free to go ahead and pop in a super chat or super sticker. It supports the channel. I definitely appreciate it. I'm working right now basically where I'm going to give recognition to my regular subscribers, the regular supporters of the channel. I got 2 or 3 things I'm rolling through my mind right now, but it's going to be something that's public on the bottom of the screen or behind me, some type of credit. So I want the people recognize that are kind enough to take time to support the channel. So I appreciate that, as I appreciate each and every one of you. Also, you can always reach out to me via text anytime at the number on your screen. It is also scrolling across the bottom of your screen. You got a question, you have a comment, feel free to send it to me. I'm here to help you. That's what I do this for. So let me see who's in the comments here. Julianne, thank you for being here. And yes, this is a nice taste of good justice this time, right? That's what I would say, Julianne, and I'm definitely glad to have you here. Hello to my friend Sapphire Ridge News. I appreciate you being here. And by the way, I want to make sure I put the actual link into the comment. There's my friend Sapphire. Thank you for being here all the way from Montana. Yes, I know he used to live here in Florida, closer to me, but he's all the way up in Montana, and I'm sure you're freezing to death right now. So I hope everything's working out good as far as that's concerned. All right, there's the link if you're so inclined to click on it and join directly. So now a quick overview of today. As you know from the thumbnail, I am all about drilling down on this fantastic victory for Donald Trump against the corrupt Fani Willis administration in Fulton County, Georgia, and of course her lover, paramour, her lover boy, Nathan Wade. Just more vindication for Donald Trump, exposing this case for what it is. And I think this case probably would have went away a lot quicker had it not been for politics on the Republican side getting in the way. Because unfortunately for President-elect Donald Trump, I guess now is probably the best way to refer to him. Unfortunately for him, he had a little scuff with the Rosenberg Secretary of State and the current governor that is serving right now in Georgia. And they have since kind of patched it up between them, and they're all singing from the same sheet of music right now. But the reality is they definitely had a hard time for a while, but Brian Kemp and Donald Trump, and I'm sure the Rosenberg has been able to kind of put it all together and smooth things over between them. So I think it will all work out. But unfortunately, they all had to go through this terrible ordeal, especially, 18 to 20 some additional people that basically worked with Donald Trump, around Donald Trump. They were in his privity. And as a result, like a normal ethical DA does, they go after the small guys and smash them in order to get to the main guy that they're going after. And that's what they do generally in the mobster type movies. And unfortunately, this is the reason why we should not have these RICO laws, or at least they should be specifically by law designated to certain criminal actors, not in the context that Fani Willis and company, Nathan Wade included, has brought this crazy case against all these people, messing up all their lives and causing all of this carnage. This is nothing but carnage, ladies and gentlemen, that has been fallen on top of these people. And it's just sad. So we're going to drill down into it now. I want to look at some of these videos, and then I actually have, I think it's 32 probably pages, including these signature pages from the Georgia Court of Appeals, dated today. So this is fresh, and it's very intriguing. Some of the clues that's in there, some of the reasoning that these judges went through in reaching this decision. And I think I can pretty well point out why this is pretty well going to be what I call iron plated. I don't really see any way that this is going to be overturned at the state Supreme Court level. Additionally, I saw Mike Davis on some channels today discussing Fani Willis and other. Of course, he is one of Donald Trump's attorneys. And as predicted, we're about to see lawfare in reverse, and it needs to happen. We talked about yesterday about Liz Cheney and the criminal exposure that she has. Additionally, ladies and gentlemen, Mike was talking about today the fact that Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, and company, they need to lawyer up. They need to get prepared, because they are about to be on the receiving end of a huge investigation headed by the Department of Justice / FBI under Patel and Pam Bondi. It's going to be sweet vindication, sweet justice. I really am kind of shy about being too boastful about it, but unfortunately, it's a necessary. I don't want to say necessary evil. It's just necessary, because this type of behavior under the Biden-Harris administration has to be smashed. It has to be snuffed out once and for all, to make sure the message is sent. If you engage in this type of behavior, it's going to be received double-fold back on you. And it's unfortunate that the Biden-Harris administration has taken us to this level, to where we have effectively become, in my opinion, unfortunately, as much as I love this company, the truth is we've become a de facto banana republic. And that is so unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen, but it is the way that it is. And yes, Sapphire says it's 18 degrees where he's at. I bet that feels good. I just walked out and checked the mail, took my dog out, and I think it's a warm 80 degrees or so where I'm at, right here north of the Metro Tampa area here in Florida. So this is the time of year where you enjoy being in Florida versus having all that cold weather. Julianne says, I cannot believe a phone call went that far. Yeah, they made a lot. They made a lot over that phone call. But if you look at the phone call, Donald Trump said, all I need you to do is find 11,000 whatever votes it was. And the legacy media took that and just ran with that, made it sound like it was some type of criminal conspiracy or criminal conspiracy in the works. If you look up the definition of fine, there is nothing to do with the word fine that even remotely is beating around the bush on creating something or making something up, committing some type of crime. Fine means, in a word, to discover. He wanted him to go back through his records and make sure that the correct people were voting, whatever. But clearly, it was definitely a bridge too far, in my estimation, to do what they were trying to do with that phone call. But listen, on this channel, I tell you the way I feel about it, whether it's a Republican type of sentiment, Democrat, or whatever. You know that I have a lot of respect for President Trump, President-elect Donald Trump now, and I am fully behind him. You know that when he first ran in 2016, I wasn't as much on board. I was a convert after he was elected. If I'm being perfectly clear about this and straight up with each one of you, I was not happy about the events on January 6, 2021. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the messaging. I didn't like the way it went down. It just looked bad. There could have been and should have been a better way to handle that. Having said that, the Democrats clearly took that situation, wiped away their responsibility, their culpability in that situation, and then they ran with it as far as they possibly could with a narrative that basically said Donald Trump is bad, Orange Man bad. We don't need Orange Man back in office. We need to do whatever we can to keep him from the office. And again, as we talked about yesterday with Liz Cheney, she's got some serious culpability there if the allegations are true. If she worked to try to change a witness before her so-called blue ribbon committee to effectively come up with fabricated and or false manufactured testimony, she's got some serious culpability, and she should be held to account for that. But yeah, Julianne, I echo your sentiments correctly. Says she can't step down and keep the cash. Yes. Yes, she can't just step down and keep the cash. Yeah, this is one of these videos we're going to look at. It's kind of funny too, pertaining to Fani Willis. There's this reporter hammering her saying, "Are you about to head to dinner?" And she says something like, "Are you going to pay cash?" Remember all that nonsense that she was pays cash for everything. She keeps, because she's black. You got to remember, that's the reason. She's black. If you're white, you don't keep cash at your house. But she explained the black culture. Black culture is we don't use banks. We leave all our money in the house. At least that's what she wanted each one of us to believe. She's nothing but a race baiter and a dishonest person, period. Very clear, very self-evident. And yes, I'm sure Pam Bondi is going to do a fantastic job. Julianne says, I heard her say something like they had no authority over her elected. Well, she can think that. She's going to find out that there is authority over her elected position when it comes to the what they call the Georgia Assembly, which is effectively the state Congress in the state of Georgia. They came up with that Senate tribunal that they charged by law with the ability to effectively oversight DAs. And I think something like that is needed across America. Something, again, we've talked about on this particular program. The United States is one, if not the only major industrial company that allows all of these DAs, all of these prosecutors at whim, at their sole and absolute discretion, to file charges and to hammer each and every one of us at their discretion. Now, admittedly, this has worked pretty well for 200 and some odd years. We can't say that any longer. You know, there's an old country song that says something like that. Can't say that anymore. And that's exactly, unfortunately, the reality. Thanks to Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith, and a list of other individuals, we have to have something different. And that's going to have to be something they're going to have to deal with at a later time. Yeah, she can think she doesn't have any authority or someone to, quote unquote, be her boss, but we'll see how that works out for her. Finding among the dead people. Yeah, listen, when you hear this mantra that there is no election fraud and that there's no irregularities, whatever, whether it's in 2020 or even in this past election, that's simply not true. There is always voting irregularities, voting issues. Now, it may not be something substantial enough to make a difference, but that doesn't mean there are not problems and that there cannot be problems. We witnessed that even in this last election, 2024. Hell, you had that one board in Pennsylvania. They decided they were going to violate the rulings of their own state Supreme Court, and they were going to go ahead and count votes. What was it? Some type of votes that were not filled out correctly or did not have the proper dates. Whatever it was, they were decided, hey, we're going to go ahead and fight the law. We disregard the law and violate it. We just don't care. And in Virginia, you had the governor had to go fighting to clean up the voter rolls himself. It's normally in any other election, it's par for the course, So, and yes, her daddy, I thought that was hilarious too. Her dad showing up at trial for Fani Willis, and thought that daddy was going to be there to save her. We'll see how that works out. Hey, all people. We appreciate you being here. None of the blacks that I've ever met have ever claimed that they paid cash for anything or kept large amount of cash. And of course not. All people on this channel, I really don't hesitate to call out this nonsense racism I really have a sore spot for these people that are what I call race baiters, race haters. I don't even think they believe the nonsense that comes out of their mouth, but they say these things because they're so outrageous. The news media picks it up and broadcasts it like it's the gospel truth. And unfortunately, it attracts views. It attracts viewers. People listen when they say this. Now, I'm not saying everything in society is perfect and that there's never an instance of a racial type situation. But the reality is this is well overblown, well oversold. And these are just facts that I don't believe are self-evident. I just don't believe these things happen to the degree they want us to believe. And not only that, especially when you're talking about the black community, for example, the more that they keep trying to put these beliefs out there, what they're telling people is that you are a victim. You're not a victor. You're a victim. And you're born a victim. You're going to grow up a victim. Society owes you something. White people owe you something. Whatever. This is nonsense. This has to stop. It just really gulls me. And again, I call it out when I see it. I really don't even understand, for example, why we have a Black Miss America pageant or a whatever. I just don't think we need to be put in boxes by race. I mean, I'm just telling you, it's not that I'm against a pageant like that. I'm just saying I think it sends the wrong message. At least we need to have that discussion and talk about it. And we need to stop teaching our children that they are victims or that people are different based on what they look like. We are all brothers and sisters in Christ. We are all of a race, but it's the human race that we all belong to. And we just need to call it out for what it is, all people, and we need to try to stop it. But thank you for that comment. I agree with you. And listen, when it comes to Fani Willis, by the way, in that cash, we knew that was a lie when she said it. The court knows she's telling a big lie. And I believe in these documents we're going to look at today, the Georgia Court of Appeals knows she's lying. They don't believe that either. They're not stupid. Sapphire says, especially when the court found over the summer that there were 400,000 votes improperly. I don't deny that at all. A day late and $1 short. Yes, exactly. Their reasoning is twisted to make it look like every vote needs to count. They just need to stop. They need to stop the nonsense. I really want to see this lawfare end once and for all. I don't care who is doing it. Unfortunately, we're in what they call and what I've called repeatedly the escalation game. And when you play the escalation game, nobody wins. I believe we've talked about that too. Basically, they did it to one side. Now the other side's going to do it to them. And unfortunately, it probably is called for at this particular point because it has to be put a stop to. An example has to be made that if you're going to go after others, you better make darn sure that your sheets are clean, that you don't have any problems. Liz Cheney, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade. Otherwise, you're going to be held to give an account just like you did to us. I'm very highly confident that at some point down the line, just like there was a Donald Trump picture or mugshot, I'm very confident you're going to see a Nathan Wade, Fani Willis mugshot. So stay tuned for that. Reverend Price, thank you for being here. I sincerely appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a subscriber here on my channel. It humbles me that you're here. So thanks again. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's take a peek at I got a few video clips here that I want to show. And then we're going to go ahead and drill and take a deeper dive into the documents and review just some of the findings, some of the thoughts that some of the judges, some of the justices on the Georgia Court of Appeals had. So let's go ahead and switch over and let's take a look at the J.R. Dukes feed, and then we'll get back to the comments here in just 1 second. Okay, let's take a quick peek at this. And I just had a few of these pertaining to Fani Willis that I think are hilarious. Now, this first one here, I have to be careful.
Did you go to a cabin with Miss Willis?
This is that clip, if y'all remember, of my friend Nathan Wade. He's on the stand under oath. Remember, he's under oath. This is going to come back and bite him. It's funny here, but it's going to come back to bite him. I'm going to mute the silent part out because they're playing music over it in an effort to make it funny, because it is funny. I saw one of the comedians said, hey, this brother showed up and he had answers. And of course, it's just a little joke swipe because he sat there trying to think about the obvious for quite some time, and then he answers. Well, we'll listen to it, then you can make up your own mind about it. So here we
ever. Did you go to a cabin with Miss Willis ever?
Ever.
Okay, so he's sitting there thinking, and of course he's probably thinking about sweet Fani. He's thinking it over real hard, still thinking about it. I got to make sure I cut the music out there. I just don't want to get no kind of copyright strikes or anything, even though it's fair use. He's still thinking about it. No.
You've never gone to a cabin with us.
No.
You've never gone to a cabin with us.
No.
Yeah, I can
Did you go to
assure
a
you
cabin
that's
with
going to
Miss-
come back. That's going to come back and bite him pretty fiercely in the future. Now, this is actually referenced in the documents from the Georgia Court of Appeals. This was the first time, at least publicly, we know of Willis getting in trouble. This is the situation, again, it shows her ethics, her ethical lapses that she has. She ended up sponsoring the opposition of a political candidate. And I believe it was a week later, she turns around and wants to indict the opponent of the person she's favored in an election. And he starts filing complaints on her. And of course, she was barred from going forward with any type of prosecution / persecution. And this is what the judge said about it. I made a video on this a while back, but this is a quick clip. Let's listen.
Using the title of your office and having on social media that you, as this political office holder, are holding a fundraiser for the opponent of someone that this political office is investigating. I don't know that it's an actual conflict, but I use that phrase, what were you thinking? Where the prosecutor thought I could prosecute the co-defendant of someone I defended. It's a what are you thinking moment. The optics are horrific. If you are trying to have the public believe that this is a nonpartisan, driven by the facts, and I'm not here to critique decisions, the decision was made, but if we are trying to maintain confidence that this investigation is pursuing facts in a nonpartisan sense, no matter who the district attorney is, we follow the evidence where it goes and ignore the fact that I hosted a fundraiser for the political opponent of someone I've just named a target. That strikes me as problematic, maybe not from an actual conflict level, but
well, this judge is trying to be very nice, ladies and gentlemen. He's trying to find a way to tell Madam DA that basically you're violating the law, but I don't want to say it in those words. But you clearly have done something at least that calls into judgment, your good judgment, and it definitely gives the appearance of something improper. That was the first time she got a major swipe against her, and I don't think it's going to be the last. But remember that case, because we're about to read about it in just 1 second in these documents right here. Now, this is sweet Fani Willis, 2020. She's running for office, and she is hammering her opponent. I think her opponent at the time was the former DA of Fulton County, a gentleman by the name of Paul Howard, if my memory serves. And at the time, Mr. Howard was having his own ethical issues there in Fulton County, Georgia. And he was, to best of my memory, he was engaging in some type of affair that he shouldn't have been in. And she's, she's taking him to task, which is somewhat normal. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but just listen to what she says.
Miss Willis, Judge Willis, what law did he violate? A few, but let's try this on for size. OCGA 45-11-5, extortion, subsection A. As used in this code section, the term extortion means an unlawful taking by a public law officer under color of his office from any person of any money or thing of value that is not due to him or more that is due to him. Any public officer shall be by himself, his deputy, or his agent, or other in person employed by him be guilty of extortion in receiving other and greater fees than by law are allowed him, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and repeat this part for me, and shall be dismissed from office. Not maybe, shall be dismissed.
I bet she's going to hate for that clip to come back and haunt her inside of a courthouse at some point. That would definitely be one of the exhibits I would be playing as a prosecutor. So here she is railing against the behavior, the unethical, and she's alleging illegal behavior of the then DA Paul Howard because of judgment lapses he has been accused of. And she's clearly railing against it, right? We all remember that. And it's also the case that when someone speaks up and calls Fani Willis out for her nonsense, she has a real nasty habit of wanting to strike back, and she wants to call you out and slam you. Clearly, especially when it comes to her name, she wanted to be fancy. If you read her name, it's Fani Willis, but she doesn't like Fanny for obvious reasons, so it's Fani. And I think you might remember President-elect Donald Trump saying something to the effect like that. But anyway, this is a cute clip. Let's take a quick listen.
While they over there running their mouth, I'm over here paying them no mind. See, I'm so tired of hearing these idiots call my name as Fanny in a way to attempt to humiliate me. Because like silly schoolboys, the name reminds them of a woman's rear. While they over there running.
I don't know. I just found that hilarious. She definitely doesn't have the thickest skin in the world. And listen, when I tell you that this woman is a corrupt, race-baiting criminal, don't take my word for it. This is a post by Viva Fry, I think is the gentleman's name. But anyway, let's take a quick listen to this.
Isn't it interesting when we got a bunch of African-American DAs, now we need daddy to tell us what to do? They can keep looking. I'm not interested in them looking. They can look. I'm sorry they pissed off. Justice is now actually blind. Lady Justice is blind. Everybody can get it.
Well, she's going to get it all right. It's just going to be a matter of time, as she says, before she gets it. And we'll just have to stay tuned and see how that works out. I think the biggest problem I have had with Fani Willis, just short of what she's doing to all these people messing up their lives, was basically her contempt for God. Remember, she's in that church there in Atlanta. And by the way, it wasn't on just one occasion. She's in church trying to defend herself, and she's committing blasphemy is what she was doing at that time. Remember, she was talking to God, oh, Lord, this and oh, Lord, that. I tell you what, she's going to have to give an account for that. Take a look at this video. Remember this back from when they had the hearing. And listen, we have to give credit to the great attorney, Ashley Merchant, who is and was at the time representing a defendant by the name of Michael Roman. He was one of Donald Trump's associates. I forgot the exact relationship. But anyway, he was one of the people caught up in this so-called RICO trial. Fortunately for him, he had the good fortune of retaining what I call the great Ashley Merchant. What a fantastic attorney she turned out to be. And man, did she dig and keep digging. And she advocated strongly for her client. Michael Roman's a very fortunate man. Frankly, President Donald Trump-elect is a very fortunate man because his attorneys, Mike Sado and these other individuals, did not uncover this information, which is somewhat surprising, but doesn't really matter. Ashley Merchant did, and hooray for her. But one of the main problems Fani Willis and Nathan Wade are going to have is both of them have said under oath that their relationship did not occur until after he was hired, which has been said to be November 1st of 2021. So remember that date, November 1st, 2021. They said afterwards they had their relationship, right? And they've also testified under oath that their relationship had ended sometime in the early summer of 2023. So remember those two facts as we watch these next two clips. This woman right here that Ashley Merchant produced during one of the hearings in front of the Judge Scott McAfee, which resulted in the removal of at least the RICO attorney, I'll use that in quotes again, of Nathan Wade. This was Fani Willis's former employee, and she was a former BFF from college for Fani Willis. Listen to what she says under oath, remind you, in a court of law pertaining to Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and their relationship. So here we go.
Yes. And do you understand it that their relationship began in 2019 and continued until the last time you spoke with her? Yes.
Boom. Right there. That is what you call, straight up, ladies and gentlemen, that is what you call a criminal act. That's what we call perjury under the law. And there are severe consequences, as you can imagine, for perjury. In addition, remember that they claimed that their relationship ended between Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, let's just say summer 2023, right? Well, I got a surprise for you. Here's a video dated August 24th, 2024. And let me set the stage for you. If you can see this on your screen, in the middle, roughly around the right middle, is the daughter of Fani Willis. I believe she's pregnant. Not that it has to do with anything, but she's a pregnant young lady. This is a county. I think it's Coyote County, one of those counties just south of Fulton County. But at any rate, she's pulled over, getting a ticket. And guess who pulls up? Guess who pulls up? Well, Fani Willis and one other interesting individual.
Couple hours, probably. Mom, Dad, who's with you? Okay.
Nice to meet you.
So,
Did you hear that? I'm Fani. Nice to meet you. Of course, we know her to be Fani.
Nice to meet you. What?
So, apparently,
You recognize that gentleman right there? Her paramour, BFF, boyfriend, co-conspirators, what I would call him, aka the RICO prosecutor, the gun-toting, press-loving gentleman by the name of Nathan Wade.
apparently her license is suspended for something. She doesn't tell us what for or why or where. That's something she's going to have to call DMV and find out. Okay. Probably what happened, she had a speeding ticket, some kind of traffic infraction, never went to court, didn't take care of it. Okay. That's the best guess. So she's gone over to Fayette County Jail, which is right in the Fayetteville Square. It's 145 Johnson Avenue. Normally, I would say a couple hours is the process. It just depends on how busy they are and like that, okay? The driving on the suspended is basically a traffic citation. She's got to have her fingerprints done, picture taken, then she can make her bond. You can pay it cash, use the bondsman, be 10%, whatever. They've got a list of people over there, too, that you can choose from and use whatever.
Where was she stuck?
So the vehicle's registered to her. Okay. I don't know if it was on a flock hit or if the officer observed some kind of traffic infraction. It wasn't me. I didn't make traffic stop. He's already gone and got her going. Okay. So whatever the case may be, when you run the tag, it obviously gives us the vehicle information and the registered owner. Okay. And it's already in the system that she's.
So basically what has happened in this particular video is you have Fani Willis's daughter that was pulled over. Clearly there's a warrant for her arrest. We're not sure exactly what the underlying reason is for the warrant, but there was a warrant for her arrest. And these cops are definitely going out of their way, in my opinion, judging by cops that I have had personal conversations with. These officers are going above and beyond, in my opinion, to be very cordial, very polite, and very accommodating to DA Fani Willis and, of course, Nathan Wade. They're taking time, great pains to explain exactly what's going on and basically reassuring them everything's going to be fine.
Has the invalid license, yeah. Okay. So upon that, we just verify that it is that person driving. Of course, stop the car first at that point. We don't have to know it's them. It's general assumption that the registered owner is the driver of the vehicle. Yeah. You know, if you stop it, it's not. Okay, have a nice.
Well, that's pretty well what I wanted to show you on that particular video. You've seen most of it right there. Isn't that interesting, though? In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, that is another video that proves that they lied under oath, another perjury charge. I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, they'll just say, well, we got back together. Well, that's fine. They can do that. They can try to paint that for a jury. But at the end of the day, you're going to have ladies and gentlemen of the jury who are adults. They're going to have to be convinced that that is the situation, that everything in Fani's life and Nathan Wade's life is kind of different. It just doesn't make any sense. Don't believe your lying eyes type of thing. but you're going to have to believe us, ladies and gentlemen, that I, Fani Willis, and Nathan Wade, no. We didn't meet back in 2019. We didn't meet until November 2023 when he signed on as a special prosecutor. One last thing they're going to have to convince everybody on. Remember, Nathan Wade, Fani Willis essentially pocketed, depending on what reports you believe, between $750,000 and $1 million in cold cash. Nathan Wade was brought on to be the so-called RICO expert. The reality is Nathan Wade has never tried a criminal case in his life, much less a RICO case. But yet he was brought on as a RICO specialist. And then, of course, that's what got everything rolling when Ashley Merchant brought all this to everybody's attention. They're like, what is going on? This man has never even tried one RICO case. And you have Fani Willis, Nathan Wade taking all kinds of luxury trips all over the world, really, just enjoying that money, that $750,000 to $1 million. And this is one of the main problems you're going to see in these papers here in a second, that the Georgia Court of Appeal justices had a serious problem with, was trying to get their minds wrapped around all these lies, all these half-truths, or just straight up, just outright lies. That's what these were. That's what these are. And it's very obvious just on its face what's going on. Last clip I want to take a look at it here is President Donald Trump trolling Fani Willis. It says here, Donald Trump suggests the only thing prosecutor Nathan Wade is good at is pounding Fani Willis because she called him some 2,000 times. These are not my words. These are words of President Donald Trump. So
I was indicted by Fani in Georgia. Fani. How did that work out? And her lover, Nathan Wade. And they hired him for almost $1 million because of his great experience. Of course, he didn't have any experience. He had experience in something else. You know that. A lot of experience. And at that, I'm quite sure he was very good based on the fact that she called him 2,000 times. I didn't know the gentleman. I didn't know him. Oh, you have 2,000 phone calls, 3,500 text messages. How is it possible in a short, I know a lot of people. We like a lot of people. I happen to have a very good relationship with a woman called Melania. But I would venture to say in all the years that I've known her, I might not have called her 2,500 times. That's all. I know I didn't send 3,500 text messages.
That is so funny. That definitely gets under the skin of Fani Willis, as we've seen in these other clips. I mean, you can understand why she would not be too happy. But listen, that is just a taste of what Fani Willis and Nathan Wade are going to have to effectively fight at some point in the near future, in my opinion. I think this case is over. I mean, I've said that a long time ago. This case, specifically the Georgia case with Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, this case is over. It's been over for a long time. We'll just have to wait and see exactly what happens on the other side of it. Just like this newer case with Judge Merchant, the fact that they want to effectively hold this case until President Trump is out of office, just kind of keep it in some type of weird suspended animation. I don't see how that can stand like that. What they're trying to do in New York is it's a little bit different than in Georgia. What they're trying to do there is they're trying to prevent Donald Trump from being able to go to court and appeal, because see, technically you cannot appeal a case unless and until the trial has ran its course. Basically, there's a judgment entered into a particular case. Now, depending on the state, there are exceptions. You know, there's always exceptions, right, folks? There's always exceptions to something. Well, generally, the exceptions you have in these type of cases with appeals is they have something called interlocutory appeals. Sometimes you can appeal during the trial. Actually, this case with Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, this is technically an interlocutory appeal because the case has not been completely adjudicated. The trial, for example, has not happened for Donald Trump and the other defendants that are still standing. In addition, there's been no sentence passed. Should there have been a conviction? And Judge Scott McAfee they asked him basically for what they call leave to leave the court, to go ahead and file the appeal, and he granted that appeal. And of course, we see the outcome of that today. But I think in relation to the New York case, just to finish my thought on there, if I'm President Trump's lawyers, I think what I would do is I would have to find some way to file what's called a mandamus. We've been talking about this a little bit, but I would find some way to take this upstairs to the Court of Appeals and hopefully to the U.S. Supreme Court, because what they are allowing cannot stand. You cannot have, first of all, there's a law in New York that says after conviction, a defendant has to be serve their sentence. They have to adjudicate the sentence. They have to pronounce sentence, probably the best way to say it, for that particular defendant within 1 year. That's what state law mandates. There is no provision that I can find that allows it to be in this state of suspended animation. And there's really a bigger issue for these last two remaining cases, Fani Willis, if I could even call it a remaining case, and the case in New York City with Alvin Bragg, Judge Merchant, and all these people here. The problem that I see is a constitutional question. How is it that you can have a sitting president, we're talking about then President Donald Trump, how can you have him as president of the United States, the embodiment, a de facto embodiment of the judicial system on the federal level, and then yet you have a lowly state court, in context, of course, a state court that kind of has a de facto weird jurisdiction over the president of the United States. To me, it's a constitutional crisis in the truest sense. I don't see how that can be left standing, but we'll see. Time will tell. Now I'm about to go into this document right here, and I want us to take a look at this together, but I want to check the comments real quick, see if anybody's got any other comments here. All right, looking good. Okay, all people, it's in the post 1965. See, migrant blacks to the U.S. brought in to replace conservative original blacks that imported their race issues. Okay, that's interesting. I will have to check in to that right there. I don't doubt any of that. Brittany, thank you for being here. Brittany, I appreciate it. Fani being removed is awesome. Why did they allow the indictment to stand? Well, there's not too much they can do with the indictment per se. There's, to my knowledge, there's not a lot they can do other than like a motion to dismiss, but there's really no grounds necessarily to have it dismissed. As a matter of fact, the more I'm thinking about it, I think they did have several motions to dismiss it or to at least cut certain individuals off of the indictment. But that is a tall order to meet. And if you remember at that time when the indictment first came down, which was 2023, the end of 2022, 2023, I think they convened the grand jury at the beginning of 2023. But at any rate, the point of it is this: the political climate, in my opinion, was definitely different back then than it even is right now today. Again, Donald Trump kind of had some frayed feelings there in Georgia. He didn't necessarily have a lot of people that were looking to help him out as far as the Republican representatives in the court system because of the issues. And again, this is just my reading of the tea leaves that he had with Brad Rasenberg and then really the current governor, Governor Brian Kemp. Remember, they had some coarse words for each other, but I just don't think it was within their ability to allow it to stand. But once Ashley Merchant came up with all of these findings, this is when this case started to unravel, and it unraveled very quickly. One of the videos that we didn't get a chance to look at, remember that one attorney, I forgot her name off the top of my head, but she was before the court, and she actually pled guilty to a lesser charge. It was something that she pled out, and I'll talk about in 1 second. So why haven't the charges been dismissed? Why is the president-elect still out on bail for $200,000? Well, there's a lot right there. The bail for the $200,000, is that pertaining to the New York case? The fact is, Brittany, that's a good question. If you're talking about the New York case or really any case, I don't see how a president can be a president-elect. He's a de facto federal executive official. Goes back to what I said earlier about a constitutional type crisis. We have three co-equal branches of government. You have the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch. One cannot exercise power in that type of regard over the other. In other words, you could not, I don't believe you could imprison a president, and you probably cannot put in jail or revoke a bond, basically, of a president that is out on bail, even a president-elect, the current status of President-elect Donald Trump. So I can tell you this: if any of these people thought they could incarcerate Donald Trump, I'm sure they would. Had Donald Trump lost this election, not a doubt in my mind, they would put him in jail for the rest of his life, specifically in the New York case. Not a doubt in my mind. Now, whether or not a president would pardon him at that point, like they did Richard Nixon, that would have to be seen. We'd have to see exactly how that would transpire. But them are great questions, Brittany. I appreciate you asking. This news, Brittany says, this news will just remind everyone that Trump is still facing numerous felonies. And unless something changes before the inauguration, he'll be the first president running the U.S. while out on bail. Well, if there is a bail currently pending against him, it's just like I said, it's going to go away. Look at the Jack Smith case. Even the feds, Jack Smith, as much as he hates Donald Trump, hates everything about Donald Trump, even they know the gig is up. Once he won and become President Donald Trump elect, it's over with. I mean, really, it's just that simple. And remember one thing, too, about New York, no matter what you hear on The View or some of these other TV stations, AKA the legacy news media, under New York law, you are not a convicted felon unless and until the judge imposes a sentence on you. So technically speaking, Donald Trump, yes, he has been convicted on those made up, resurrected, dead misdemeanors that were turned magically into felonies. Clearly, it's not going to survive any type of appellate process. At least it's not going to survive in the U.S. Supreme Court. It's just not going to happen. But to answer your question directly, I want to be clear. He's not a convicted felon, and I'd have to check on the bail. I wouldn't be surprised if he is out technically on bail on one of those cases, but it's not going to go it's not going to go anywhere. He is the de facto president right now. He's untouchable. I mean, that's just the best way to say it. I hope that sheds a little bit of light on there for you. Julianne says, I think the case gets a new prosecutor who could drop the charges. You know, that is probably technically what they would end up doing with this case out of Georgia. I'm assuming you're talking about the Georgia case. What should happen under the law in Georgia is that this case should be farmed out to another prosecutor's office, another district attorney somewhere in the state of Georgia. But I am going to go on a limb here and hear me clearly. This is one of these J.R. Duke's predictions, and I've been pretty good about these predictions, as we all know. I don't think I've missed many of them. Nobody wants this case. Who, in their right mind, in the state of Georgia, would want to be the prosecutor, the district attorney, the solicitor, or whomever that picks up this case and tries to go after a current president-elect and a current sitting president? It's a complete loser. It is a case that everybody knows is corrupt. It was conceived in hell. I mean, it's just cases all about evil. It's all about stopping him from becoming the next president of the United States, and it has failed. Period. It has failed. I cannot imagine any prosecutor wanting to pick this case up and go forward with it. First of all, it's expensive, and it will destroy any career of anybody that tries to touch us. Now, as Julianne said, technically somebody might pick it up, but it would only be to pick it up to stab a knife right through the thing, just to kill it. And if I'm wrong, we'll find out. Let's see. See, all people, exactly. It's still so unfair for putting. Yeah, I agree. I agree totally with y'all's comments on this here. Let's see. Researchers, just as in with Malcolm X. See, the parents of Fani Willis is where radical activists import from the Caribbean in place and high levels U.S. government. Okay, interesting comments coming from you there. Alrighty, and then Fani Willis. I like that, all people. That's cute. That was another epic Trump movement. Yes, Donald Trump definitely is a person that is kind of like Ronald Reagan, if not better, in my opinion. Truly the great communicator. See, Melania Trump Melania Trump. I don't know what I'm thinking. Melania Trump is the definition of grace, beauty, and I guess she is. She is a beautiful woman. And of course, like all of us, she was really pretty when she was younger. I guess that fits all of us. But yeah, she is. Even my girlfriend the other day was watching her on TV. Something was going on, and she goes, "Oh, my love, she's so elegant." You know, my girlfriend is Venezuelan, so she got a little bit of an accent. Talks, she's good with English, but she talks a little funny. But it was cute the way she says certain things. But that's what she said. She says, "Oh, my love, she's so elegant." It's cute. Julianne, Wade's divorce and depositions. Yes, he's got. I don't know if he's technically divorced yet, but obviously his soon-to-be ex-wife, if they're not already divorced, has been hammering him, which she should hammer him. I'd be hammering him too. He's got a lot of issues with that divorce. If you remember, there was some things we talked about that are what I call quasi-criminal. Folks, as a point that I was just thinking about, I think the best video that I have had in quite some time, last time I checked was over 330,000 views, something like that, was a video in which it was about Nathan Wade. And I was showing Nathan Wade in court on this particular case. And I was showing exactly how, I was showing with evidence directly the fact that Nathan Wade was and is incompetent. He has no business being before a judge trying to try a case, much less a case involving the now future president of the United States. This man, as I pointed out in the video, did not know the difference in a grand jury or a special grand jury. He was trying to argue to the judge that they were effectively the same thing, and that is not the case under Georgia law. It's just not. And again, the corruption of Fani Willis and Nathan Wade is nothing short of staggering. I have this video here, if it pops up, that was back from 2020, and this is before obviously all this stuff with Donald Trump. Here it is right here. This is before this stuff with Donald Trump. Nathan Wade, he's been corrupt for many, many years. This is not a new thing for him. Let's take a quick peek at this since y'all brought that up. Julianne said grand jury casting call. Yes, yeah, I agree totally. Take a look at this here. This shows my point about Nathan Wade. I don't know that I've ever talked about this publicly, but take a look at this. I found this from 11 Alive, a local station there in Georgia, and this pretty well illustrates what I'm telling you. This guy's corrupt. Fani Willis is corrupt. He has a history of corruption.
Helping lead the election interference case against former President Donald Trump and others is under mounting scrutiny tonight after a defendant accused Fulton County Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade of having an improper personal relationship with DA Fani Willis.
So now joining us is 11 Alive investigative reporter Zach Merchant, bringing us another connection here.
Yeah, and it's important to say right off the bat here, the allegations made in that filing have not been proven so far, but it is not the first time Wade's conduct has been questioned. Back in 2020, after a series of deaths in the Cobb County Jail, 11 Alive filed an open records request for documents related to the deaths. Despite having released many of those documents to the public in the past, the sheriff's office refused to release those records to us, saying many of the cases in question had been reopened as part of an external review of the jail.
So just so we're clear, this is a case where they were exercising, 11 Alive was requesting pursuant to what's called the Open Records Act in Georgia. A lot of states have these records. Here in Florida, we have what's called the Sunshine Laws. And basically it allows us to have access to all kinds of records, body cam footage, this type of stuff. Same thing in Georgia. They wanted the exact records that they requested, and they were refusing, specifically Nathan Wade was refusing to hand these records to this particular reporting agency that wanted them. And again, this is par for the course. This had to do with the Fulton County Jail. They had a lot of problems at that jail. They still have a lot of problems at that jail, a lot of inmates dying. And guess who was involved with him concerning this? Fani Willis, of course. But this is the key point. Listen to how Nathan Wade tries to explain his work product. He tries to explain why he hasn't turned over the documents that was requested under law. from him. Very interesting. See if you see a pattern.
Nathan Wade's law firm was tasked with leading that review. 11 Alive ultimately sued to bring those records to light. In a filing in October of 2020, Cobb County's lawyer wrote that over the course of 5 months, Wade and his law partner had met with numerous staff members and inmates and reviewed hundreds of files.
The funny thing is, the law partner that they're referencing right now is the law partner that made the mistake of talking to Ashley Merchant. Apparently, his law partner, Nathan Wade, has some kind of falling out. Something happened between them. And when his law partner realized what a terrible mistake he made, because he just crucified Nathan Wade and de facto Nathan Wade as a result of this, he tried to back off his testimony. Remember that in court? Well, this is the same guy they're talking about.
But when questioned by 11 Alive's lawyer, Derek Bauer, at a hearing just 3 days later, Wade said he didn't have any records of his work.
You do not have a single record in your possession that's associated with the review and assessment that you've been engaged to undertake?
I do not.
Does your law firm possess any records?
No, sir.
As your review and assessment for the Cobb County Sheriff's Office stands today, you have no work product whatsoever associated with that undertaking, correct?
Oh, I have work.
Look how smug that guy looks. Doesn't he just look like a smug, pompous jerk? There's some other words I can think of, but of course I try to keep this a PG program, but I digress.
Product is just not in the form of documents, communications, or record memorializing, reflecting evidence, or relating to the work, as you've put it here.
Okay, well, what work product do you have?
Well, I have
obviously
my brainchild, what's going on in my mind about it. That's what I have.
In a ruling in favor of 11 Alive, a Superior Court judge ultimately dismissed Wade from that 2020 case, but also noted he had not produced any reports or other documentation.
All right, so
what he was basically saying, what he's trying to convince everybody of, convince the court, convince that reporter of, he's basically saying, hey, listen, the work product, I did the work, I did whatever I was supposed to do, but my work product, which is generally in the form of paper or it's on disk or something along those lines, the work product is right here in my brain. I did all the work and filed it away in my brain. And there's no way I can produce that because it's in my brain. And he said as much in other videos that I've seen. So this guy just really thinks he's going to get away with all of these crimes. And there's other videos that I have seen myself pertaining to this guy and Fani Willis. I believe it was 11 Alive. It might have been one of the other stations there, Fox 5 or something. But ladies and gentlemen, the bottom line is he has a history along with Fani Willis, specifically in Fulton County, all kinds of little scams like this. This is not it's just not related to the Fulton County Jail. There's a lot of different little, I guess you can call them scams, just little issues, everything from cleaning contracts and different type of things. And I would say the subtext is that somehow, some way, they're milking the taxpayers. They're milking Fulton County. They're milking Georgia taxpayers, and in relation to this RICO case, they're milking you. They're milking me because the feds have actually sent them money. Remember, there's other whistleblowers against Fani Willis that have come forward saying Fani Willis specifically misappropriated funds that were, for example, earmarked for kids and some of the kids programs. Yet they kept the money and used it for things they wanted for their office, which is a clear violation of the law. And as a result, the alleged instance, these people, these whistleblowers, lost their jobs as a result of that. So when they start looking into this, this is not going to be the only Fani Willis, Nathan Wade issue going on. There is a lot of criminal activity that is going to be found. And so just stay tuned. So let's take a look and let's go right in to the actual document. Here we go. Okay, here we go. This is the actual pleading that came out today. It's dated December 19, 2024 from the Georgia Court of Appeals. You can see, I'm not going to go over every single line, but I do want to review this because I think it's important. And if you have any questions about it, obviously type it in so that I can respond accordingly on here. All right. In the Court of Appeals, December 19, 2024, you see right here on your screen the names of each defendant. You have Roman versus the state. And remember, Michael Roman, that is the individual represented by the great attorney Ashley Merchant. And it continues to go on down. By the way, here is our favorite president, President Donald Trump right there. We've also talked about a lot of these other individuals. You may recognize the name of Giuliani, the mayor, the former mayor of New York City. So this was a split decision, just to be clear, 3-judge panel on the Georgia Court of Appeals, and you had a split decision, 2-1. But it doesn't matter. A win is a win. It's not going to be changed, as I've said before. So it lists out the people: Michael Roman, David Schaefer, Robert Cheeley, Mark Meadows, Donald Trump, on and on and on, were charged in a 97-page indictment with RICO violations and other crimes in connection with an alleged conspiracy to unlawfully change the outcome of the 2020 presidential election, pursuant to a granted interlocutory application, the interlocutory appeal we've been talking about. The applicants appeal from the trial court's order denying their motion to dismiss the indictment and granting in part their motions to disqualify Atlanta Judicial Circuit District Attorney Fani Willis, aka DA Willis, and her office. Collectively, the appellants assert numerous grounds to reverse the trial court's order. Remember, the trial court, which of course was Judge Scott McAfee, said, listen, DA Willis, either one of two things have to happen. Either you and your entire office is off of the case, or you got to give the boot to Nathan Wade. Kind of what I would call a judge, a Solomon verdict. You know, it's kind of like splitting the baby. But in this type of case, there is no splitting the baby. When there's evil, the whole thing is evil. It's got to all be thrown out. That was my opinion then, and it's my opinion now. I believe the reason that Judge McAfee did what he did with the split the baby verdict is because, unfortunately, as I've been talking about before, in Georgia and many places in the United States, unfortunately, the judges are elected. They are elected officials, which I just can't get my mind around why that is allowed in our country. It should not be allowed because, as is my opinion in this particular case, Judge Scott McAfee ruled that way because he has to answer to his voters. Remember, Scott McAfee was appointed to his position by the current governor, Brian Kemp, to fill the seat. It was a judge that left the bench, retired, something. Scott McAfee was appointed by the current governor of Georgia to fill the remaining term of that seat. But McAfee, of course, wants to stay in that job. Now, remember, McAfee is a white dude, and he is representing a district in Fulton County that, let's just say it's a district of heavy Democrats. He wants to kind of find a way to thread the needle, if you will. He wants to rule in a way that's not going to make everybody so mad at him that he basically loses his job as a judge, right? That makes perfect sense, right? So he ruled this way. He granted permission to appeal this, and fortunately, it came out the way that it should come out. But I just want to give you some context so you know exactly why, at least in my opinion, he ruled the way he did. It says collectively, the appellants assert numerous grounds to reverse trial court's order, including that the trial court impose an improper remedy, concluding that DA Willis's prosecution is encumbered, and this is a quote, by significant appearance of impropriety, not grounded on mere status alone, but instead resulting from a quote specific conduct impacting more than mere nebulous public interest because it concerns the public prosecutors. Bottom line is there's corruption, there's a conflict of interest. She had to go. In response, the state asked this court to affirm the trial court's order is in its totality, including the imposition of an alternative remedy requiring that either DA Willis, along with her whole office, step aside and refer the case to the prosecuting attorney's counsel for reassignment. That's what we talked about earlier, is that it would have to be assigned out to another prosecutor. No nobody wants this case then. Nobody definitely wants this case now. That I can absolutely guarantee you. It says Willis, her whole office have to step aside. The alternative was, according to the judge's ruling, was a special assistant district attorney, Nathan Wade, and here he's called Wade, to withdraw from the case. So it's either Willis in the office or Wade has to go, as we've been talking about. The state has not filed a cross appeal asserting that the trial court's finding of his appearance is improper, should be reversed. All right, so this is just them outlining exactly what each party is wanting. Now, at the conclusion here, it says, for the reasons explained below, we conclude that it was and therefore reverse the trial court's denial of the applicant's motion to disqualify. The key is right here. We affirm, however, the denial of the appellant's motion to dismiss the indictment. So Donald Trump and the other co-defendants wanted the entire case thrown out. This particular appeals court would not throw out the indictment, but they did reverse Judge Scott McAfee's order allowing Willis to stay on. And just so we're clear, it says the case, the whole thing boils down to this. We must determine whether the remedy fashioned by the trial court for this undisputed finding of a significant appearance of impropriety was proper as contended by the appellants. And that's where they said that they reversed the trial court because they believe there was indeed some improper actions. The motion to disqualify in the special grand jury proceeding on January 24, 2022, Chief Judge of the Superior Court of Fulton County impaneled a special grand jury and requested, at the request of DA Fani Willis, for the purpose of investigating the facts and circumstances relating to the possible attempts to disrupt the lawful administration of the 2020 elections in the state of Georgia. This is what we've called collectively the RICO case, and this is all to do with the phone call and other circumstances that we have been discussing today. All right, DA Willis served as a legal advisor to the special grand jury, which began receiving evidence in June 2022. Around the same time, DA Willis hosted, this has to do with that video we watched earlier where that judge pretty well gave her a whooping over her conduct. And this is what the appellate court said. Around the same time, DA Willis hosted and headlined a fundraiser for an opposition candidate against Burt Jones in the lieutenant governor's race, after she later publicly identified Jones as a target of the grand jury's investigation. He and 11 other alternative electors sought to disqualify DA Willis and her office. So what they're saying here is that DA Willis had a fundraiser for Burt Jones. This was right after she impaneled a grand jury to look into criminal activity related to Burt Jones. And after she has this fundraiser for his opponent, she goes forward and identifies him as a target. Depending on the crime, depending on the state, I know the feds do this a lot. For certain crimes, they have to give you notice that you are what's called a target of an investigation. And again, I'm not an attorney, but there's a lot of, it depends on the state, but at times, if you're the target, you might be invited, you might have a right to actually put on evidence in front of the grand jury, or in this case, the special grand jury. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, that depends on state law, and it does vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Okay, after she later publicly identified Jones as target of the grand jury's investigation, he and 11 others sought to disqualify DA Willis and her office based on actual conflict of interest. The Superior Court overseeing the special grand jury proceeding disqualified DA Willis and her office from any further criminal investigation or prosecution of Jones based upon, quote, a plain and actual and untenable conflict. It reasoned that concern about the district attorney's naturally, intermediately, and reasonably arises in the minds of the public, the pundits, and most critically, the subjects of the investigations that necessitates the disqualification. An investigation of this is significant, garnering the public attention it necessarily does, and touching so many political nerves in our society. It cannot be burdened by legitimate doubts about the district attorney's motives. The district attorney does not have to be apolitical, but her investigations do. So she can be of whatever particular party. She can be a fierce advocate for her causes in the Democratic Party, but her investigations, any DA's investigations, have to be apolitical as represented by the court. And I wholeheartedly agree with it. The Superior Court denied the motion to disqualify filed by the remaining alternate electors because they failed to show an actual conflict of interest with DA Willis or any member of her prosecution team. Its order did not explicitly address the appearance of impropriety as a ground to disqualify. After the special grand jury issued its final report recommending criminal charges against the appellants and others, it was dissolved in January 9, 2023. So it was dissolved. The special grand jury was terminated. The case was effectively over. Motion to disqualify following indictment on August 14, 2023. What it should say here, on August 14, 2023, soon after it was clear Donald Trump was going to run and probably win the Republican nomination for president of the United States, DA Willis secured the RICO indictment against the appellants and 10 others. On August 9th, 2024, Roman, remember, he's the one represented by Ashley Merchant, a very key player in this whole drama, filed a motion to dismiss the indictment and disqualify DA Willis, her office, and SADA Wade, Nathan Wade, from further proceedings, from further prosecuting this case on alleged grounds of conflict and an appearance of impropriety. Boy, that's a very kind way to put this, right? Roman, via Ashley Merchant, alleged a personal relationship between DA Willis and Wade, along with an alleged personal financial interest in the case. After DA Wade spoke publicly in a church service on Sunday, January 14, 2024, the other applicants also filed motions seeking dismissal and disqualification on the same grounds, as well as the additional ground of forensic misconduct in connection with the church speech and various other extrajudicial statements. Remember that? That's the time she went to that, what was that, A&E church or one of them downtown Atlanta is where I believe it's at, and she gave that blaspheming speech to the entire church, and that was supposed to be her defense. Remember that? That was supposed to be her defense of her conduct and why she brought all these charges and such a heavy hammer against President Trump and other people associated with him. The trial court's order on March 15, 2024, the trial court entered its order on the motions after conducting a multiple-day evidentiary hearing. It summarized the issues and its ruling as follows. Now, this is from Judge McAfee. As alleged, the claims presented a possible financial conflict of interest for the district attorney. More importantly, the defense motion and the state response created a conflict in the evidence that could only be resolved through an evidentiary hearing, and one that could not simply be ignored without endangering a criminally accused constitutional rights to procedural due process. Basically, it would be unfair. Their civil constitutional rights would be violated. After receiving 2.5 days of testimony, during which the defendants were provided an opportunity to subpoena and introduce whatever relevant and material evidence they could muster, the court finds that defendants failed to meet their burden of proof that district attorney acquired an actual conflict of interest in this case through her personal relationship and recurring travels with the lead prosecutor. The other alleged grounds for disqualification, including forensic misconduct, are also denied. However, the established record now highlights a significant appearance of impropriety. Maybe not a proved allegation, but even the appearance of impropriety is a bridge too far. That's kind of what the judge is trying to say here. That infects the current structure of the prosecution team, an appearance that must be removed through the state's selection of one or two options. The district attorney may choose to step aside along with the whole of her office and refer the prosecution to the prosecuting attorney's counsel for reassignment. Same thing we've been talking about. It has to go to another prosecutor. And of course, the alternative solution the judge offered, we're talking about Judge Scott McAfee, was that Wade can withdraw, allowing the district attorney, the defendants, and the public to move forward without the presence of some type of remuneration distracting from the potential compromising of the merits of the case. In other words, Fani and her office can go, or you can cut out Nathan Wade and you can go forward. Now, these were the findings of fact. The findings of fact in this particular order. This is what the judge, Scott McAfee, said happened. On November 1st, 2021, the district attorney hired Nathan Wade to serve as basically the SADA, the RICO prosecutor that led the investigation that produced the indictment in this case. The district attorney considered at least one other option before hiring Wade, extending an offer to former Governor Roy Barnes. Remember the former governor, Roy Barnes? He was at one of those hearings. He was offered this job originally, and then he backed off. Incidentally, now Governor Barnes has been representing DA Fani Willis in some of the hearings before another judge pertaining to the Open Records Act that she was not complying with. That was the recent case where she was ordered to produce the items that were requested correctly pursuant to law. And of course, Fani Willis has failed, ladies and gentlemen, no surprise here, to do what she has been instructed to do. Under the terms of the first contract, Wade was not to perform more than 60 hours of work per month without written permission. No evidence introduced indicate that Wade was ever received permission to extend these monthly hourly cap. His contract was renewed twice, November 15, 2022 and June 12, 2023. And remember, depending on the published reports we read, Wade and I would say Fani, de facto Fani, they pocketed $750 to $1 million. And folks, we don't really know the full scope, if even that encompasses everything, because there could be a lot more shenanigans, we'll call it that we just simply don't have all the information on yet. It says between October 2022 and May 2023, the district attorney and Wade traveled together on 4 occasions that resulted in documentable expense. In other words, they have documents on this. The first included an extended trip on October 22 to Miami and Aruba and a cruise. Well, it's good being king, ain't it? It's good being lover boy to the DA. I will tell you this as a side note. I know that's a lot of money, $1 million, but when you look at Fani Willis and you realize what Wade had to do, I'll just say he earned his money, but I digress. Wade initially covered expenses for the October 22 trip, totaling approximately $5,223. December 22, the two flew to Miami for another cruise. Must be nice. For which the district attorney paid $1,394 for plane tickets, while Wade purchased passage for the cruise along with other vacation-related expenses, totaling approximately $36.84. In March 2023, the travel to Belize. Remember the Belize trip? These two are having a good time. They're jet setting. They're going all over. They're having a great time, right? And let's see. They traveled to Belize, where Wade covered resort and restaurant expenses in the amount of approximately $3,000. In May 2023, they traveled to the Napa Valley, where Wade covered airfare, lodging, and Uber rides in the amount of $28.29. And they probably stayed over at Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I don't know. The Napa Valley, kind of interesting, right? In addition, the two described taking a number of day-long road trips to Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, and other parts of Georgia. They also admitted to dining out on multiple occasions and taking turns covering the bill, with seemingly full access to Wade's primary credit card statements. The defendants did not produce evidence of any further documentable expenses or gifts, nor were they revealed through the testimony. In total, defendants point to an aggregate documented benefit of at most approximately $12,000 to $15,000 in favor of the district attorney. See, that right there kind of kills the deal, ladies and gentlemen. That shows that the district attorney, through Nathan Wade, is clearly receiving financial gain for what I would call the persecution of President Donald Trump. There's really no other way to surmise that. I mean, that's pretty clear. The district attorney in Wade testified that these expenditures were not meant as gifts and not designed to benefit the district attorney. Both testified the district attorney regularly reimbursed Wade in cash. And if not reimbursed, the district attorney covered comparable related expenses. For example, the district attorney testified that she reimbursed Wade in cash for the Aruba trip. Remember cash paying Fani Willis? She pays everything in cash, right? We paid cash from Aruba trip, which she estimated cost around $2,000, and that she, quote, gave him money, end quote, for both cruises. She further claimed that she reimbursed Wade for the entirety of the Belize trip, and that she paid for the Napa Valley excursions. Finally, while Wade could have bought meals in 2020, which totaled him more than $100, she would also regularly pay for his meals. Such reimbursement practice may be unusual, and the lack of any documentary collaboration understandably concerning. Yet the testimony withstood direct contradiction. I wouldn't agree with that, by the way, but at any rate, that's what the court said here. Was collaborated by other evidence. For example, her payment of airfare for two on the 2022 Miami trip, and was not so incredible as to be inherently unbelievable. However, the district attorney herself acknowledged no ledger exists. Remember, they did not keep track of any of the expenses. Fani Wade didn't keep any records. Nathan Wade said he didn't keep any records. And remember, this is purposeful. This was intentional. Especially Fani Willis, one of her specialties is white collar crime and going after money laundering and going after people that are just committing these, we'll just call it this blanket of white collar crimes. Well, she knows all the tricks of the trade. She knows that if she wants to launder money, or she wants to hide money, or she wants to effectively not be caught in her lies, she knows what to say. And one of the things you say, ladies and gentlemen, is we paid cash. We didn't keep records, just like Nathan Wade keeping his work product in his head. They're singing from the same sheet of lying music. Other than the best guesstimate, there was no way to be certain that the expenses were split completely even. And the district attorney may well have received a net benefit of several $100s. Despite this, after considering all the surrounding circumstances, the court finds that the evidence did not establish the district attorney's receipt of a material financial benefit as a result of her decision to hire and engage in a romantic relationship with Wade. Simply put, the defendants have not presented sufficient evidence indicating that the expenses were not, quote, roughly divided evenly, or that the district attorney was or currently remains greatly interested in this prosecution. In addition, and much more important, the court finds, largely based on the district attorney's testimony, that the evidence demonstrated that the financial gain flowing from her relationship with Wade was not a motivating factor on the part of the district attorney to indict and prosecute this case. While the general motive for more income can never be disregarded entirely, the district attorney was not financially destitute throughout this time or in any great need. As she testified, as her salary nearly exceeds $200,000 a year. So she's making pretty good bank over there in Fulton County as the Fulton County DA, just over $200,000 a year. And of course, she keeps all that money in cash in her house, according to her own testimony, without any indication of excessive expenses or debts. Similarly, the court finds the defendants have failed to demonstrate that the district attorney's conduct has impacted or influenced the case to the defendant's detriment. While prejudice is not a required element for disqualification, it is relevant to the considerations of due process and the defendant's requested remedy of complete dismissal. Defendants argue that the financial agreement created an incentive to prolong the court case, but in fact, there was no indication that the district attorney is interested in delaying anything. Indeed, the record is quite to the contrary. And again, this is what they submitted as facts and evidence. It goes on that even before indictment, the district attorney approved a grand jury precedent that included fewer defendants than the special purpose grand jury recommended. In summary, the district attorney has not in any way acted in conformance with the theory that she arranged a financial scheme to enrich herself. Of course, I totally disagree with that. And as Julianne was saying, yeah, no receipts. That's exactly what they've done this entire time. Hide the receipts, hide everything, lie about everything. And by the way, it was in cash. There's no receipts. There's no ledgers. You just have to take our word for it that we split everything down the middle, because she has to show she is not financially benefiting from this case. And we all know what the truth is. It says, without sufficient evidence that the district attorney acquired a personal stake in the prosecution or her financial arrangements had any impact on the case, the defendant's claim of an actual conflict must be denied. This finding is by no means an indication that the court condones this type of judgment or this type of activity. All right. And then it continues on. It says, although the trial court found insufficient evidence of an actual conflict of interest, it also concluded that, and this is important, this part of it here, because this is where these justices are going to really rip this case apart. It concluded that the record made at the evidentiary hearing established that the district attorney's prosecution is encumbered by an appearance of impropriety. This appearance is not created by more status alone, but more because of specific conduct and impacts more than what's called a nebulous public interest, because it concerns a public prosecutor. I agree with that part. Even if the romantic relationship began after Wade's initial contract in November 2021, the district attorney chose to continue supervising and paying Wade while maintaining such a relationship. She further allowed the regular and loose exchange of money between them without any exact or verifiable measure or any type of reconciliation. And basically, as I was talking with Julianne, no receipts, no nothing. They wanted to keep, they want us to believe they kept nothing. I should say that. But the bottom line is, we know what happened, and we know what the justices are thinking similar, right? This lack of a confirmed financial split creates the possibility and appearance that the district attorney benefited, although it may be not materially from a contract whose award lay solely within her preview and policy. So I should say her preview and her policing. So even what they're pointing out is that even though Scott McAfee, the trial court judge, did not completely take D.A. Willis, Wade, and her office totally off this case completely, this reasoning that we just read, this is where the appellate court's going to go in and say, hey, even the trial court judge pointed this stuff out as a matter of law, and this is intolerable. The rights of these defendants is absolutely paramount. So it's going to get into it right here. More importantly, were this case be allowed to proceed unchanged, the prima facie means on its face, concerns raised by the defendants would persist. As the district attorney testified, her relationship with Wade was only cemented after these motions and is stronger than ever. Wade's patently unpersuasive explanation for the inaccurate interrogatories he submitted. Remember this, in his divorce, he presented what they call interrogatories, which are basically just questions that attorneys will ask someone as part of what they call the discovery procedure. Okay, so these interrogatories, the trial court or this appellate court is saying he just, they were wholly inadequate. In his pending divorce indicates his willingness on his part to wrongly conceal his relationship with the district attorney. In other words, Wade has a record of lying in court pertaining to his relationship with DA Willis, and I think that's a very valid point. It says, as the case moves forward, reasonable members of the public could easily be left to wonder why the financial exchanges have continued, resulting in some form of benefit to the district attorney. Of course. Or even whether the romantic relationship has resumed. We know it's resumed. We just seen them together on tape, right? Driving around, going to see what happened to daughter, right? She just got arrested. Or she got taken in on a warrant, probably the more accurate way to say it. Put differently, an outsider could reasonably think that the district attorney is not exercising her independent professional judgment, totally free of any compromising influences. Amen. As long as Wade remains on the case, this unnecessary perception will resist. The testimony introduced, including that of District Attorney and Wade, did not put these concerns to rest. During argument, the defendants focused largely, pivoted from the financial concerns to disproving the testimony of the district attorney, namely that her romantic relationship actually predated November 2021. We've been talking about this ad nauseum, folks. Their relationship was before November 2021. I guarantee you, there's a perjury charge coming on that alone, if nothing else. It predated November 2021 hiring of Wade. On that front, the court makes a few brief observations. First, the court finds itself unable to place any stock in the testimony of Terrence Bradley. Let me tell you what that means in a non-legal statement here. It means that the court finds Terrence Bradley to be a liar. They don't believe him. Terrence Bradley, by the way, was the former partner of Nathan Wade that we were just talking about in that last video. Remember, they were making comments about the fact Wade will not turn over any work product, and it was Ashley Merchant that got this tip, apparently, and of course, I'm just reading through the lines here, and more likely there was some type of problem between Terrence Bradley and Wade. Terrence Bradley, if you remember, he was that black gentleman. He's kind of middle-aged, kind of looks like me, but just as a black guy, bald-headed, and he was the former partner of Nathan Wade. And after he told Ashley Merchant all the information that Ashley Merchant dumped out to Scott McAfee, and it caused his whole case to blow apart. After he realized what he did, you know, it's one of those moments, folks, where you go, oh, man, did I do that? Oh, you know, I'm kind of mad at Wade. I'm not happy at him, but, man, I didn't mean to do this. This could put him in jail. This could put Willis in jail. This is going to totally blow this case. He realized he stepped on it. That's what he did. He stepped on it. You would hope that an attorney that's an officer of the court, as an officer of the court, folks, you have a duty to make sure justice is never impeded. It's your job to make sure that this type of behavior never happens. Don't get me wrong. You want to win your case. You want to fight as hard as you can for your client. But folks, when you are a member of the bar, when you are a prosecutor, when you take that oath and you're sworn in, if you're Terrence Bradley and you have a law license, you have an obligation as what they call an officer of the court. You're supposed to be beyond reproach. You're supposed to be above this type of nonsense. And you're supposed to do it of your own accord. If you see this type of malfeasance, you're supposed to put a stop to it. You're not supposed to allow this to happen. You're not supposed to lie under perjury. You're not supposed to go after people for personal gain. This is not in keeping with the finest traditions that the law profession has set for itself. It goes on, and this is the Court of Appeals talking. His inconsistencies, demeanor, and generally non-responsive answers left far too brittle a foundation. I like the way they put that. It left too far brittle a foundation. You know, that foundation this case is built on ain't worth you know what, right? Upon which to build any conclusions. while prior inconsistent statements can be considered as substantive evidence under Georgia law, Bradley's impeachment by text message did not establish the basis for which he claimed such sweeping knowledge of Wade's personal affairs. Remember, Bradley was on the stand and Merchant was questioning him because he was having a memory that wasn't working, and he was saying things that were clearly contrary to what Ashley Merchant had text message receipts for. Ashley Merchant, she's a sharp woman. I keep saying this. She kept her text messages between her and Terrence Bradley, and thank God she did. It goes on. Bradley's impeached by his text message did not establish the basis for which he claims such sweeping knowledge of Wade's personal affairs. In addition, while the testimony of Robin Yeardy, now Robin Yeardy, remember, this is the ex-BFF from college of DA Fani Willis. In addition, Robin Yeardy worked, at least at some point, directly for Fani Willis until they had some type of falling out. It says Robin Yeardy raised doubts about the state's assertions. It ultimately lacked context and detail, even after considering the pre-offered cell phone testimony from defendant Trump, aka President Trump, along with the entirety of all evidence. Neither side was able to conclusively establish by a preponderance of the evidence when the relationship evolved into a romantic one. We all know when it started, and it was not in November of 2021. And I love this next part. However, an odor of mendacity remains. Now that, my friends, was actually coined by the trial judge, aka the trial judge Scott McAfee of Fulton County, Georgia. The odor of mendacity remains. The court is not under any obligation to ferret out every instance of potential dishonesty from each witness or defendant ever presented in open court. Yet, reasonable questions about whether the district attorney had her hand-selected SADA, aka Nathan Wade, testified truthfully about the timing of their relationship further underpin the finding of an appearance of impropriety and the need to make proportional efforts to cure it. In other words, it's clear these people are lying, and at a minimum, there is this appearance of lying, of impropriety, and there needs to be something done to cure it, to correct this. All right. It goes on. It then rejected dismissal of the indictment and disqualification of DA Willis and her office based on the following reasoning. Ultimately, dismissal of the indictment is not the appropriate remedy to adequately dissipate the financial cloud of impropriety and potential untruthfulness found here. There's no showing the defendant's due process rights been violated. That's going to change here in just a second, but they're laying out the facts as they see it that has transpired in this case up to this point right here. It goes on. Nor is qualification of a constitutional officer necessary when a less dramatic and sufficiently remedial option is available. It says the district attorney's selection of whether Wade would withdraw or she would refer the case to the prosecuting attorney's counsel for reassignment. In other words, they give it to another prosecutor. It goes on. The appellants contend that the trial court's failure to disqualify DA Willis and her office was erroneous in the light of the trial court's finding that the record established that the prosecution is encumbered by a, quote, a significant appearance of impropriety, end quote. In the appellant's view, the trial court's forward-looking remedy did not cure the already existing appearance of impropriety and the odor of mendacity found by the trial court based on the fact finding of the trial court in its order and the state's failure to cross appeal the trial court's finding of significant appearance of impropriety. We agree. As our consideration of the appearance of impropriety is limited to the remedy fashioned by the trial court, we turn to Georgia law on the issue. So this is the Court of Appeals, and they are basically talking us through their logic, their mindset, how they arrived at their findings. So they're saying, we're going to turn to Georgia law on this issue. It goes, while the parties advocate for a diametrically opposed bright line rules, disqualification of the district attorney's office can never result from an appearance of impropriety or disqualification should always result when the elected district attorney engages in activities that raises the appearance of impropriety. Georgia law requires neither as a matter of course. Instead, we must examine the particular facts and circumstances of each case while keeping some general principles in mind. So a lot of times, especially attorneys and the court for that matter, they like bright line rules. You can do this, but you can't do that. And what the court is saying, Georgia law doesn't necessarily lay out bright lines for us. So what we need to do is we need to look at each case on its particular merits in order to decide whether or not the removal of a DA or prosecuting attorney is warranted. The court goes on. First, the trial court's ruling on a motion to disqualify is reviewed for an abuse of discretion. They want to make sure you have proper reasoning to bring this forward, that you're not doing it to delay or to interfere with justice being served. The first part says, at one end of the scale, disqualification is always justified and indeed mandated. And it goes on, even when balanced against the client's right to an attorney of choice, is the appearance of impropriety coupled with a conflict of interest or jeopardy to a client's confidences. So they're just kind of pushing that particular thing out of the way. Now it goes on. Here we must address the remedy in the context of a significant appearance of impropriety caused by the conduct of the public prosecutor, aka Fani Willis. In our criminal justice system, the district attorney represents the people of the state in prosecuting individuals who have been charged with violating our state's criminal laws. The responsibility of a public prosecutor differs from that of the usual advocate. Her duty is to seek justice, not to just convict. And again, something we talk about all the time and that we've talked about today. It's not their job just to get a conviction. That's not what justice is supposed to be about. They are supposed to seek justice first and foremost. This special duty exists because the prosecutor represents the sovereign and should exercise restraint in the discretionary exercise of governmental powers. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you should understand most of that. Furthermore, the district attorney is more than an advocate for one party and has additional professional responsibilities as a public prosecutor to make decisions in the public's interest. Amen. In the district attorney's role as an administrator of justice, he or she has broad discretion in making decisions prior to trial and who to prosecute and what charges to bring and which sentence to seek. That's the way it's been. That's been the tradition of our country, ladies and gentlemen, for 200 and some years now. And, I fear that we have outgrown that. Something different has to happen at some point in the future. It says, after careful considering the trial court's findings in its order, we conclude, here's the key part of the whole thing, we conclude that it erred by failing to disqualify D.A. Willis and her office. Boom. That's a complete and total win for President Donald Trump and the other defendants that are in this particular case. The remedy crafted by the trial court to prevent an ongoing appearance of impropriety did nothing to address the appearance of impropriety. So the Court of Appeals is telling future judges in future cases, hey, not only can you look at as to whether or not there is some type of actual evidence of something that is improper, but just the appearance of impropriety is something you have to look at. And it says that existed at times when DA Willis was exercising her broad pretrial discretion about who to prosecute and what charges to bring. While we recognize that an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, there is the rare case in which the disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. Amen. I totally agree with that. And the court is giving us the magic solution here. Accordingly, we reverse the trial court's denial of the appellant's motion to disqualify DA Fani Willis and her office, as we conclude that the elected district attorney is wholly disqualified from this case. Quote, the assistant district attorneys whose only powers to prosecute a case is derived from the constitutional authority of the district attorney who appointed them, have no authority to proceed. The appellants contend that the trial court erred in denying their motions to dismiss the indictment. Now, they didn't allow this to go through. They did say Willis has to go, which is a win, but Donald Trump and the other defendants wanted this entire indictment dismissed. They did not get that. It says the state responds that the appellants have failed to show that the trial court erred in finding that the appellants had not shown that their due process rights have been violated or that the issues involved prejudice them in some way. And that is pretty well the biggest part of this whole thing. In the absence of express statutory authority, dismissal of indictment generally cannot be imposed absent a violation of constitutional right. I think they could have legally dismissed this entire indictment had they wanted to, because I think there was plenty of things they could have grabbed onto, but they chose not to do that, which is fine. It's not going to make any difference. DA Fani Willis, her office being off this case, that's good enough for me, and that's a huge win for President Donald Trump and all the defendants in this particular case. While this is the rare case in which DA Willis and her office must be disqualified due to significant appearance of impropriety, we cannot conclude that the record also supports the imposition of the extreme sanction of dismissal of the indictment under the appropriate standard. The appellant's remaining enumerations of error are rendered moot, which means they don't matter, by our holdings in divisions 1 and 2. Judgment affirmed in part and reversed in part, and signed by Justice Merkel. And, or I should say, Justice Merkel occurs, and only one justice dissented, which was Judge Land. That's it. This second part we're not going to get into. This is just the reasoning of the sole dissenting judge. But again, this was a 2-to-1 split, and it is a complete and total win for President Donald Trump and his associates. So we should all be rejoicing about that. I am extremely excited that the judge saw it the way, or I should say these justices saw this thing the way that they saw. You know, this is from today too. You had Laura Loomer. She had an interesting video she posted, and I guess you can call it a de facto reaction from the crooked DA Fani Willis. Let's take a quick peek at that. I want y'all to see this. She was not a happy camper today. It says, Laura Loomer, watch. Fulton County DA Fani Willis was removed from President Trump's case today, just 2 weeks after it was announced on December 3rd that the Fulton County Superior Court ordered Fani Willis turn over all her communications to the January 6th committee. This is the new committee under the Republican umbrella looking into this. And it says, I have questioned Fani Willis and the J6 committee members and their deleted comments. I mean, everybody's investigating this one way or the other. Now, again, here's Laura Loomer. This is supposed to be a new video of DA Fani Willis. Let's take a quick
committee that was requested.
We'll talk about it.
Hey, Fani, how come you haven't complied with the Judiciary Committee's request for your communications with the January 6th committee? Did Joe Biden promise you a position at the DOJ during his second administration? Are you going to be ordering Grey Goose tonight, paying in cash?
Did y'all hear that? She goes, are you going to be having Grey Goose tonight and paying cash? Oh.
You say that Donald Trump is violating the law, but you haven't even sent your communications with.
You see her right there. That's Laura Loomer. That's Laura Loomer right there talking to DA Fani Willis. Boy, you can bet she's not happy.
The J6 committee that was requested by the Judiciary Committee.
Hilarious. Are you going to be having Grey Goose tonight, Fanny?
Good morning,
And Pan
Congressman
Cash.
Thompson. Hey, how you doing? Pretty good. So why has
Now, this is Brian Thompson, I think is his name. This is the bozo they put as the head of the so-called select blue ribbon committee that, of course, was nothing but a farce, just a circus put on by Nancy Pelosi and these woke anti-Trump cronies. And remember that former Representative Liz Cheney also was supposed to be the ranking Republican member on that committee. That's why they call it the so-called bipartisan blue selected committee, whatever, just a bunch of garbage. But at any rate, they kind of are hammering this guy right here. This guy, by the way, is the one that has already been on record asking President Joe Biden to consider him for what they call a preemptive pardon.
Doesn't the J6 committee follow through and handed over their deleted communications with Fani Willis? Who? Fani Willis. Y'all deleted your communications with Fulton County DA Willis, and the House Oversight has asked for those communications, and the J6 committee hasn't provided them yet.
Well, as far as I know, everything's been provided.
Well, there's letters that say otherwise.
He doesn't want to talk about that, does he?
Congressman, why did your J6 committee delete communications with Fani Willis?
It didn't, and you're a cult member.
Well, you've got
He goes, we didn't, and you're a cult
a
member.
lot of letters that said you did. Do you want to comment on that?
No, you need deprogramming.
I read the news, Congressman.
Yeah, you need deprogramming, huh? Interesting, ain't it? That's a pretty good video by Laura Loomer there, that one where she's right in DA Fani Willis's face. And, of course, here's Donald Trump saying Merry Christmas. See, out on her Fanny. Georgia appeals court disqualifies Fani Willis from Trump election interference case. Needless to say, everybody's extremely excited and looking forward to hopefully the arrest, at least the investigation of all these bad actors, and then we can see exactly how this turns out. I'm certain that they're going to find all kinds of nonsense and malfeasance one way or the other on this here. These clips are golden that's on here. These are clips that's going to come back and bite all these people. Here is that young lady I was looking for. That her name is Jenna Ellis. She was one of Donald Trump's attorneys, and unfortunately, she was, well, I guess you could say she was found guilty. She was found guilty because she pled guilty. And I want to watch this real quick, and then we're going to talk about it. Why would she plead guilty on this? Right, here we go.
Challenging.
Here we go.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to address the court.
A quick note, if you notice in the corner behind my face here, it says MidasTouch.com. That's them goofs over there that real radical, really woke. They are the definition of woke. Sometimes I enjoy listening to some of the nonsense they have to spew over there. That one guy that runs that place over there, this guy's a real creep. I mean, he is really a creepy looking dude. And just think he's a depository of everything that's holy and has all the knowledge that we ever need stuck between his head somewhere. It's just interesting to watch them people babble and act like they know everything. And of course, he was predicting that Donald Trump would be in jail by now. Thank God Donald Trump won. At any rate, here's Jenna Ellis. She was hammered by Fani Willis and took this deal, and we're going to talk about it in 1 second.
As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court.
Well, this is extremely unfortunate, and I wanted to talk about this. We briefly talked about this. At least I've referred to it at times, and the question is real simply, why would somebody plead guilty like this young lady here did? And listen, at first blush, some people get kind of irate when they hear her saying the things that she's saying. This was at least a year ago, probably 2 years ago now. And again, everything was kind of different in the country. People were worried, especially if you were a Trump supporter. It was not clear back then that Donald Trump was going to win re-election as president. And you had all of these different entities seemingly coming after Trump supporters, this lawfare that we talk about all the time now. I don't really blame her. You got this young woman here, and you have the weight of the state, if not the federal government, collaborating all together, and they're bringing all this pressure to destroy you. Now, it's real simple. Why would someone plead guilty like she did if they're not guilty? It's what I just said. These attorney bills can bankrupt you, and they will bankrupt you at some point if you continue to fight. You have to understand that for anybody to go through this type of prosecution / persecution, it's extremely stressful. This woman has 1 or 2 small children. She has a family. She has a husband. She went to school for many years to become an attorney. The short version is this. The reason you plead guilty is because you want to have some type of control as to what the outcome of a particular case is going to be. Had she not taken this plea deal, and let's just say things did not work out the way that they have worked out now. Let's just say that Donald Trump did not win re-election. Let's just say that the rulings did not go the way we hoped that they would go. She might have made a really good bargain right here, because this particular plea that she entered before Judge Scott McAfee effectively allowed her to plead to a much lesser charge. There was no finding of what they call moral turpitude, which is a fancy way of saying that you've committed a crime that basically means you are a bad person, a person that cannot be trusted. And when you have these type of moralistic crimes on your record, you will lose your license to practice law. So she was trying to prevent herself from being literally in a cage like an animal for years and years, like they've done right now. And they are doing to many of the J6 heroes that are now incarcerated. Donald Trump calls them hostages, and I don't have any reason to argue with that label. You basically have this lawfare being brought against simple, normal individuals, and she's no exception. They literally just brought the weight of the state and the federal government on her, and she, rightly so, was looking for a way out. I'll tell you one other thing, too. This is a lesson in life. I've always looked at life as following, and I'll give you a quick illustration. There was, and this is just an illustration, there was this lady that was on a cruise ship, and they were taking a cruise. And no, it was not Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. It's just a random individual on a ship. Well, she heard from the speaker, she heard the captain say, ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. I want to let you know that, unfortunately, sometime this evening, we're going to be going through a tornado. Through a hurricane. There was a hurricane that popped up. We had no way to foresee this happening, and we cannot turn back. We've made a decision. We're going to go right through it. We're going to be fine. And of course, that was at the end of the announcement. This lady on this boat was very, very concerned. She was extremely nervous, as a lot of people might be. Well, anyway, she called up to the captain's command station and whatnot, and she requested to speak to the captain. So at any rate, the captain said, come on up and talk to me. So she's up there, she's talking to the captain, and she lets the captain have it. She's like, listen, this is a ridiculous decision. You're putting my life at risk. I don't think you're thinking this through, blah, blah, blah. And the captain said two things to her. The first thing he told her was, I would say it's words to the effect of, I'm the captain, I'll do what I want to do, and I really don't care for your opinion. And the second thing he told her was, when I normally tell people this, by the way, I normally switch subjects and talk about something else, because most people are like, well, what was the second thing? Tell me the second thing. So I won't berate or just stretch this out any further. I'll go ahead and tell you the second thing. The second thing, and this is very important, remember this for the rest of your life. The second thing that the captain told this woman is that this ship was built for a storm such as this. That's it. And of course, this is a metaphor. The ship is basically you going through your life, and the water represents the world, the problems you're going to have, the issues you're going to have in the world. And of course, the captain metaphorically is God, right? He's the big jefe, the big boss. And you have to remember that you're going to be successful in your life, but you have to do one thing very well. And that is, do not let the water from the outside get on the inside of your boat. Does that make any sense? It's very important and very clear. And I think at some point in our lives, we've all been there, where we've just been hammered and hammered and hammered about something that's going on in life. And at some point, some of that water can leak, get into your boat, get into your life. And you start thinking bad about yourself, or you're just not dealing with whatever the problem is in a healthy way, in a way that is going to lead you back to prosperity, because we all have storms in our lives. It's inevitable. If you're living, you're going to have a problem. I like to always say you're either in a crisis, coming out of a crisis, or going into a crisis. And as long as you keep the water out of your boat, you're going to be fine. Because remember, our Lord made you for a storm such as this. Remember that next time you're going through a storm. You have everything you need to get through the storm. The Bible teaches us that. You have everything you need to get through whatever the storm is you're going through. Unfortunately, in my opinion, this young lady, and again, I'm not faulting her. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. She's got water in her boat. She's thinking she's a bad person. She's thinking she made a bad mistake. You can see the tears. You can see her crying. I was listening to other people. She that water is in her boat. She thinks she's a bad person, and that's not the case. Unfortunately for this woman, the water got in her boat, and it was just too much for her to deal with. That's my interpretation. If you guys agree with that, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. I'm curious if you guys understand what I'm saying as far as this illustration. It's important that we all always remember to stay strong, stay positive, and remember, you are made for a storm such as this, especially in this Christmas season right now. It's always a great time to be alive, right? But it's even more so somehow right now. Christmas is coming up. One of my favorite times of the year. Clearly, I always enjoy family, friends. Frankly, I enjoy talking with each one of you and having the discussions that we have routinely. So enjoy this season. Whatever problems you have, as I say, free that mind. Let them problems go. Enjoy what time you have here on earth. Enjoy every single day. If you ever really get too depressed and too despondent, always think of this, and that is, count how many blessings you do have. Think of how fortunate you are. And if you think you're not blessed and you think you're not fortunate, I can promise you down the street somewhere, there's a hospital that is full of people that would gladly trade places with you right now in whatever type of situation that you are in. I've learned a long time ago, someone always has it much worse than you have it. So just kind of take that and chew on that, so that see if that helps you out. So I appreciate everybody being here today. I want to give a real quick shout out. Julianne, thank you for being here, Julie. It's always a pleasure having you. And of course, I don't remember all people in here, but I appreciate you being here just the same. My friend over Sapphire Ridge News, Brittany, thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, Reverend Price, for being here. It's always a pleasure to have time to come in and chat with everybody. I'm sure I probably missed several people, but just the same, know that each and every one of y'all are appreciated. I wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas, and may the Lord's Holy Spirit bless y'all until we meet again. I like to always say, my friends, keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.